Hello and welcome to Happily Educated. I apologize for the excessive length of today's post. It happens to be a subject that I get very riled up about, so I can't help but rant just a bit. So in my last post, I talked about how ignorance, although it can be blissful, is not generally worth the long-term consequences. And today's post is related to that idea. I'll be talking about toxic chemicals and how they wreak havoc on our bodies. And in some ways, this subject goes against the mission of this blog, because although generally I believe that my learning helps to make me happier, in this particular case, my knowledge about this subject makes me furiously angry. So not happy at all. But I'm glad to know what I know nevertheless, and I wanted to share it with you. So it's insane how many toxic chemicals we are exposed to on a daily basis. And it's scary to think about what the consequences of that exposure might be. As if the pesticides and other nasty stuff that we consume in our food isn't bad enough, we're exposed to toxins via a zillion other seemingly harmless sources. For example, if you are sitting on a couch right now, chances are that the foam pillows contain flame retardants that have been linked to cancer, hormone disruption, and neurological deficits, among other things. If the flame retardants actually help to stop fires, or if they stayed in the pillows where they belonged, that would be just lovely. But they don't. They get into the dust in our house, and from there they get into our bodies. And what's really upsetting is that even if you wanted to buy a couch that didn't contain flame retardants, you'd have trouble doing so because thanks to the lobbying efforts of the companies that make these chemicals, there are laws that regulate their inclusion in furniture and various other products. So, the details of that are a little too complex for me to get into here, and honestly, I don't even understand them all. But I did on the website, I listed some links to articles if you'd like more information about that. Unfortunately, flame retardants are not the worst offenders. Phthalates and BPA are in a ridiculous number of products that we come into contact with on a multiple times per day basis. Just to name a few, phthalates are commonly found in cosmetics, medical devices, medicines, and children's toys. As a consumer, it's virtually impossible to know which products phthalates are in and which they are not in. One of the reasons for this is that there are many different varieties of phthalate, which all have different chemical symbols or different chemical abbreviations. And another reason is that companies don't have to label their ingredients accurately because, their specific formulas are considered to be trade secrets. So as a consumer, just about the best you can do is avoid plastics whenever possible and any sort of personal care product that lists fragrance as an ingredient. And again, there are more articles about that on the blog if you are interested. Unfortunately, researchers have not been able to prove without a doubt that these chemicals are harmful to our bodies or to our health. Lots of studies indicate that we should be very, very worried about our exposure to toxic chemicals, but making definitive claims about their effects is nearly impossible. And since our country takes a very backward approach to chemical regulation, allowing chemicals to be used until they are proven unsafe, rather than making them prove that they're safe in the first place, it means that these companies can put these chemicals into just about anything, or can use just about any nasty thing they want to in their products. According to a recent article in the New York Times, let me read this officially, quote, "Of the 84,000 industrial chemicals regulated for use in the United States, only about 200 have been evaluated for human safety by the Environmental Protection Agency. That's because industrial chemicals are presumed safe unless proved otherwise under the 1976 Federal Toxic Substances Control Act." End quote. It's also worth noting that the United States, or our laws about chemical regulation, are quite lax in comparison to other developed nations. So, at the risk of getting political again, I must say that I feel that it's the government's job to protect us from exposure to these toxins. Unfortunately, it seems they're doing kind of a lousy job of it. But my reason for saying that it's the government's job is that private citizens, your average private citizen, such as myself, does not have the time or energy or resources to educate him or herself about, what these chemicals could possibly do to us. Furthermore, even if you know about the risks, it's still virtually impossible to avoid exposure to this stuff. So, research has shown that Mennonites have comparatively much lower levels of these chemicals in their blood, but personally, I don't want to have to live like a Mennonite, just to keep myself safe. So I do what I can to limit the toxins I'm exposed to, but it's difficult and it's stressful. It's hard to know to what extent I'm being neurotic or to what extent I'm not being neurotic enough. I wash my hair with baking soda to avoid the phthalates that are in shampoo and conditioner. And this did mean that I had to tolerate disgustingly, grossly greasy hair for months and months, which my mother made fun of me for mercilessly. And my poor husband, he no longer wears cologne because I would not come near him when he did. And although I haven't gotten to the point yet of refusing receipts in stores, I'm seriously considering it. So, this behavior undoubtedly seems crazy, and maybe it is. I have to confess that I'm a little embarrassed even just telling you about it. And, surely it's over the top to hold my breath while I walk past the Bath and Body Works store at our local shopping plaza. But, I figure it's better to be safe than sorry, so I do what I can. However, I sure would appreciate it if the government would do a better job regulating these chemicals so that I could spend my time learning and thinking about more enjoyable things. So, you should not have to fear your shower curtain. That is what I think, because it probably contains phthalates. So on that cheery note, thanks for watching and happy learning.